Go ahead.
What you see out of Flaherty, and what went into the decision to leave him in as long as you did in that third inning?
He wasn't sharp, clearly. He was, he's been fighting something. He's been under the weather a little bit. So I don't know if that bled into the stuff, the velocity. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to Jack. Right there, looking at the game, we have 5 leverage innings. And so a couple guys were down, Caspias and Henriquez. So you've essentially got 5 leverage innings. And you're talking about we're down 3-1 at the time. And, you can't cover the game with leverage and being down. So you're trying to get some outs. And after the walks in that third inning, and then Marte, you're still at that point trying to cover 7 innings. And so he gives up the double. And then so for me at 5-1, I'm not going to deploy our leverage guys knowing that there's a cost on the back end, and appreciating the fact that there's still more baseball to play in the series. So you've got to those are thoughts that went through my head. But I think for me, I have 5 leverage guys that I wanted to make sure that, you got to deploy at the right time.
Dylan?
Dave, it's a situation one basically, given like how the limited number of innings you've been getting out of your starters, the limited number of, again, these leverage relievers, that you can't use any of those guys basically if you're not ahead or maybe tied.
It's not always fun when you're going through it. Certainly from anyone's chair, certainly my chair, but you have to kind of remain steadfast in how you use your pitchers, because ultimately it's about winning 4 games in a 7-game series. And so when you're careless, then it'll show itself at some point, certainly in a long series. So in that point, with our leverage guys, mainly Blake and Evan, it's just not responsible in that point of the game for me. And so Honeywell did a fantastic job saving everyone and knowing we've got a bullpen game coming up in Game 6 as well. So there's that part of it too.
Pages, how encouraging was it to see that? And I think Manaea got him a couple times, right, struck him out a couple times last time, but do you expect him to be in the lineup in Game 6 after?
I expect him to be in there, and he took great at-bats. So I think for us, obviously, seeing all their guys, it was a must-win for them. Getting those guys extended, Diaz in there for 2 innings, all that stuff certainly matters. But obviously, with Andy, his game allowed for Peterson to go a little bit shorter, which is great.
Andy?
Dave, just jumping on Dylan's earlier question, I mean, you know what your offense is capable of. You know how their bullpen is a bit short. Like, how painful was it for you to have to maintain that discipline tonight?
It's tough, and I can't. I wish I can predict Andy's going to hit 2 homers tonight. But if you can kind of think through the game as I do. Left with 3 innings potentially of low leverage guys, you're still in a position, and you're not certain how the game's going to play out. But you do know that there's a cost for the ensuing games. So I think those are bets that I got to make and watch the game. But it was good to see our guys fight back. Certainly offensively, we're in a really good spot.
Bill, down here in the front.
David, I want to ask what you're seeing out of Freddie, and given he's trying so hard, but is there a thought that maybe at this point it's just not as effective as he'd like it to be, and he might have to sit out for Game 6?
I'm going to have a conversation with him tomorrow, but I do think that his swing is not right, and I'm certain it's the ankle. So, we'll have that conversation, but it's certainly an option to not have him in there for Game 6, yes.
We'll do 2 more, Jay, on the middle aisle, and then we'll finish with Pete.
Yeah, it seemed like there were a couple plays there in the early innings where Mookie Betts was having a bit of an adventure out in right field. Thinking the Lindor triple and the Winker hit. Did you see anything that was off about those?
I thought on the one, I thought it should have been a glove play, and I think he tried to barehand it, took his eye off the ball, which allowed for one of those guys to score instead of securing it, getting the ball in the infield. I don't recall the other one exactly, but he's as good as they get out in right field. But certainly, I know the barehand play, that's got to be made cleanly and getting back into the infield for sure.
We'll finish up with Pete in the middle on the left side.
Dave, you talked this morning about the importance of scoring first. It looked like in the first inning you had it set up the way you wanted it.
We did. Infield back, corners in. That's a situation that, Shohei's got to go on the ball in the middle of the infield. And I think he just locked up there. And, it's no excuse. But I do think that there's some momentum part of it where, they ended up getting out of that first inning and allowed to build some momentum as opposed to, getting a 1-0 lead in the top of the first.
All right, thanks, Doc. We'll see you back in LA.
Is a product of executing and approach, says Pete Alonso, and Dusty is back. That's vintage.
There it is.
You guys happy now?
OG, clean player. Come on, pop that collar for me one time. Hey,
What was Pete Alonso talking about, executing?
Well, you have a game plan of how you want to approach a pitcher. There are no surprises. You know what he likes to do in certain counts. There are percentages, all these things that you get from the analytic team. And then when you get up there, you say, I'm swinging that ball's in my area. We always talk about cutting the plate in half.
Sure.
Get yourself in the zone. And when a pitcher gets in trouble and starts falling behind, they either nibble or say, I'm trying to get ahead. You don't let them get ahead. When they're trying to get ahead, you make sure that the head of the bat meets the ball. And he was never out of trouble. Even the pitches that he threw down in the zone, they found something to do with it. So sometimes that can mean we have your pitches, there's something you're doing in your glove, or you're just going to follow the book to a T. This situation, you're going to throw this pitch in that location, and we're going to execute it by not missing those pitches when we get them.
We've talked about the need for stars to star a lot in October. It was Lindor, it was Alonso, Francisco Alvarez, Marte. They all showed up, the Mets lineup.
And it's so crazy because with Alonso, this could have been his last game at Citi Field. So to have the
Mets
start,
fans not happy with you.
all right, hey, it could have been, but they win, right? They end up winning. So he wants to go out on a message. But you have the stars coming up. You have Lindor with the big contract. You have Nimmo with the big contract. You have all the names coming in where you need to. On the other side as well, you have all those former MVPs with Betts and Ohtani. So the fact that we're seeing our stars shine, but what's been crazy in this series is you blow out in one game, you get blown out the next game. You blow out in one game, you get blown out. That's just been the MO of the NL series over there, which is
So
crazy.
what's going to happen tomorrow?
Tomorrow they're going to chill.
Yeah, tomorrow
they're going to chill tomorrow.
Well, it's interesting. On Sunday, it is a bullpen game, and Jack Flaherty was flawless in Game 1. Dave Roberts has a bullpen game in Game 6, so he let it ride. Do you win the day? I think that's an interesting point. Or do you save your arms knowing that you have a bullpen game in Game 6 on Sunday?
Well, let's put it this way, Lauren. The very next game, they have everybody with their cleats on. So there's nobody that's going to probably be held back for the next day. They all go out. So the bullpen game doesn't bother me as much tomorrow because they are going to need everybody available. That includes all the starters, relievers, and everybody else. It's a final. You got to go for it.
But you're managing to win the day.
Yeah, I'm managing to win today because, see, I've been in a situation where you let them get off the mat. If you let them get off the mat, something invariably always happens. Now, my nemesis was Game 6. I didn't like Game 6 because I didn't have much success on Game 6. So you got to try to win today and don't worry about the next game.
That is exactly what Dave Roberts will try to do. Carlos Mendoza.
And the Mets, they will live to play another day. They win the 5th game of this National League Championship Series, and they beat up the Dodgers tonight. 12-6 is the final. They trail it 3-2. Day off tomorrow, out to Los Angeles. They look to get things even and play on Sunday. So let's begin with where they got big hits early in this game. And fellas, we spoke on the pregame show about the need to get big hits. And for Pete Alonso to get a big hit, and he did, Todd, right out of the gate for the Mets.
Yeah, Garrett, sometimes ask and you shall receive.
Yes.
When we were going out of pregame, I said, love to see Pete, have another moment. This time, let's not wait till the bottom of the ninth. Okay, so he took care of it right away in that first inning. And this is an impressive home run. I mean, some of Pete's home runs are impressive, but this ball is the second lowest ball off the ground. Look at this ball breaking down. He stayed behind it and drives this slider 430 feet straight ahead. into or almost into the apple, and that really set the tone for the Mets right there. We've talked a lot of times over the course of this series that it is very important to try to get to the Dodgers early, get runs on the board, and get ahead, because they can really match up well out of their bullpen. They were able to get to Flaherty today. I didn't think he was going to be the same guy that we saw in Game 1. He clearly wasn't the same guy that we saw in Game 1. The velocity that was down, the breaking balls weren't as sharp, and the Mets were ready for it 5 days later, and they had good at-bats against him, and that started in that first inning with Pete.
All year long, the breaking balls have bedeviled Pete Alonso. In the past, he was a very good breaking ball hitter, but this year, it had not been happening for him, and the Dodgers breaking balled him to death over the first 4 games of this series. But too many breaking balls sometimes can come back and bite you. It's the first home run that Pete has hit on a slider since August. As Todd noted, it's the second lowest pitch off the ground he's ever hit for a home run in his career. And since they started pitch tracking in 2008, it's the second lowest pitch ever hit for a home run in the postseason. The only one lower, 9 years ago to the day, Daniel Murphy against Jake Arrieta.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How difficult, by the way, to hit that pitch and to hit it as far as he hit it?
Well, we've seen Pete go out of the strike zone, especially out of the strike zone low when he's staying back, because he gets such a great extension and he drives the baseball when it's out in front of him. And he's just got that swing where he is a very good low ball hitter. And we've seen him do that with balls below the zone, with balls below the zone, and even outside when he's locked in and letting the ball travel. And to Gary's point, he hasn't been letting the ball travel at times, especially the spinning ball, and he's been getting himself out in front, and something like that he'd roll over earlier in the season. Now we've seen him even in the postseason with the home runs to the opposite field, the big home run in Milwaukee, waiting on a Devin Williams changeup that came backdoor, and he was able to drive it to the right field side. That's when he really feels locked in, and his bat is quick, and he's dangerous back down there, and pitchers think they've made a great pitcher's pitch, and then they turn around and watch it go 420 feet.
All right, so you talk about that big home run in Milwaukee. That means that Pete has now hit 2 3-run home runs in elimination games in the postseason this year. He's just the second man to do that. And Gary, we speak so much, and we've spoken so much throughout these playoffs about Francisco Lindor constantly meeting the moment. And Pete, even though it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, he has met the moment.
You know, to me, the most amazing thing about it is that we've been talking really since spring training about Pete and his free agent status going into this offseason. And every time we come to this point of, well, you know, it could be his last game as a Met, he keeps saying, it's not on my mind, I'm just focused on the game at hand. And he keeps proving it. The moment wasn't too big for him. He didn't let the emotion of it get him. He had a great at-bat against Flaherty, laid off a couple of tough sliders, and then hit one out of the ballpark. He wound up getting on base 4 times in this game. So if we're obsessed with his pending free agent status, Pete clearly is not, and he is taking care of business as far as this season will take him and the Mets.
I really think one of the big things in this game, when it was all said and done, the Mets pounded out 14 hits. Yes, top of the order came through, but they got length out of the order in the game, and that goes all the way down to the 9-hole, Francisco Alvarez.
How about the fact that the Mets did not strike out a single time in this game? They struck out 25 times in the last 2 games. They were having great at-bat after great at-bat, and you mentioned Alvarez, first pitch hits all over the place. He had himself another good day after a good day yesterday.
Yes.